I know what you're thinking. Santosh, come on. How can you be so politically incorrect? How can you declare a camera as the best overall? It has to be best at something. Perhaps I can understand if you say that the D6 is best at sports photography. I hear you. But here's the thing. To me, the best camera is synonymous with the most versatile. To me, versatility is the benchmark of bestness. And I think the D780 is really versatile. How exactly? Let's find out. I hired this camera from a rental company called Book My Lens. So you can check them out. They have this camera on rent right now. I'll link the description below. By the way, this is not a paid association with Book My Lens. This is not sponsored, so I'm working quite completely independently. But I just thought of mentioning it because not many rental companies are offering the D780 right now. So if you're in Bengaluru and you want to hire a D780, perhaps Book My Lens is a place worth checking out. First, I must perhaps start with a little bit of a background. Now, DSLRs had already reached a certain zenith in their form factor within the constraints of, let's say, the niche in cameras that they occupied. So for a DSLR to get better, it had to transcend the barriers of a DSLR and incorporate certain qualities that are not present in DSLRs traditionally. So the first and most obvious place they could look at was mirrorless cameras. Now, a couple of years ago, Nikon released two mirrorless full-frame cameras, the Z6 and the Z7, and instantly they became sensational, mainly or chiefly because they had certain new qualities which DSLRs traditionally lacked. Most importantly, or most specifically, they were very, very good at video, at making movies, which DSLRs, to put it very bluntly, sucked at for quite some time. But the Z6 and the Z7 are far from perfect. They cannot really do very well the things that DSLRs have perfected over the decades, not just years. And what is that? That is still photography. So DSLRs are still way better at taking still photos than mirrorless cameras for two chief reasons. The first is that the autofocus system seems to work a lot better for still photography in DSLRs. And two, you don't need adapters to use SLR lenses, which you do of course on mirrorless cameras. So for these reasons, I was very, very excited when the D780 was released, because what it does is actually bring together and marry the best of both worlds. It's got the movie module from the mirrorless cameras and of course retains all the strengths that DSLRs have always sported. So let's bite into this review and see exactly in what ways it's so good that I'm tempted to call it the best DSLR that Nikon offers. First up, build quality. Now the D750 was never unsatisfactory in the way it was built, but let's just say that it had its vulnerabilities. Particularly the grip didn't quite feel solid, rock solid, and the rest of the body as well, perhaps because of the presence of the inbuilt flash, pop-up flash, didn't feel quite as structurally rigid as the topmost Pro bodies. But the D780 has resolved all of that, I'm really happy to say. Firstly, the grip is just the right size. It retains that slenderness or the sleekness of the D750's grip, but feels a lot more solid, perhaps thanks to the part metal construction which the D780 has. But it isn't too chunky. It doesn't feel overtly fat in your hand. It doesn't feel like a handful, and yet it's absolutely adequate even with heavy lenses. I really like the grayed out flash hot shoe, and the rest of the body as well, also because the flash is gone, the inbuilt flash, as well as perhaps something about the overall shape and contours of the body feels just superbly put together. So there's absolutely no complaint on the build quality front at all. Next up, speed. Well, here's where a lot of amateur photographers shed a lot of sweat worrying about blazing continuous burst speeds and counting frames, like counting hairs, with high resolution cameras, but 7 frames per second I think is adequate, like I have said in another video as well, for most normal photography. When I say normal, I mean anything that does not involve extreme speed action for most of the time, most of your shooting time, something like sports or bird in flight photography, where having those extra few frames per second will make a significant difference and give you unique frames which you can keep. So 7 frames per second is not shoddy at all. But really the most exciting new feature of this body has to be the continuous live view shooting, which is just utterly spectacular. It's almost like magic, because unlike the other bodies in the past, which when you used in live view mode, the screen would still flicker, go off and on for every shot. This one doesn't at all. It works exactly how you expect it to, which is completely seamlessly. To illustrate how amazing this mode is, let's shoot this little scooter here on this table and see how this really works. So let me just turn on the live view mode. Here you see live views come on, and now I'm going to take a series of pictures of the scooter in the quiet live view mode, and let's see what happens. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. That's it, we're done. Well, you might be finding it hard to believe that I actually took any pictures at all, but you see this green light here was on until about a second ago. That's because it was writing the images to the card, and if you don't believe me, they're all here. You see? So that is how incredibly quiet, fuss-free and undramatic live view shooting in the quiet mode is. In terms of frame rate, I don't see a difference at all. In my experiments, I got roughly the same speed, that is 7 frames per second, as just the default continuous burst shooting mode. But in terms of how discreet and marvelously buttery smooth this is, it is just unbeatable. And because, as I'm going to cover in more detail in the video and autofocus sections of this review, it has phase detect autofocus in the live view mode, you aren't really compromising the autofocus performance a hell of a lot, which means that you really have the cake, and yeah, you know the rest of the cliche, don't you? Like I mentioned, the D780's true strength is combining the strengths of mirrorless and DSLR cameras, and one area in which it does so rather sensationally is video. And what are the highlights of the video? One, it's got full frame 4K, and it's just the second camera, or the second DSLR rather, in the Nikon lineup to actually do that after the D850, which in itself is very, very noteworthy, because the D6, like I lamented about recently in another video, does not offer that at all. So if you want full frame 4K video, well, you really don't have to look further than this. The second is 120 fps slow motion. Again, it just completely beats me as to why Nikon refused to add it in their D6, but it has, I'm very glad to say, made its way to the D780, and so you can record full HD slow motion videos at 120 fps, which is just fantastic. But the true highlight to me, the true tour de force in the video department, has to be the phase detect autofocus, which has made its way from the mirrorless cameras here to the D780. Finally, you have a very respectable autofocus performance while shooting videos, and this is very evident in even the most tricky situation that you can impose upon a camera, which is have a large aperture so that your depth of field is quite shallow, and then have a subject walk head on towards the camera, which is exactly, as you can see, what I did here. And the D780 aces it. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's eons ahead of what DSLRs have offered so far. And particularly in this comparison with the D600, you can clearly see how the D600 is really struggling to keep the focus on the subject for anything more than half a second. The D780 just makes it look seamless. Next up, functionality. I must say the D6 introduced quite a few cool features, and I'm very glad to report that many of them have actually found their way to the D780. First, my favorite is the 900-second shutter speed, which you can set in the manual mode. Of course, it has to be still activated through the menus, but that's no biggie. That's just a one-time thing, and you can do it very easily from the custom settings menu. And just simply expose for 15 whole minutes without ever using a remote or physically holding down the shutter release button for that insane period of time. So that's really, really good. Next, we have a time-lapse or hybrid time-lapse feature where the camera will give you a ready-made time-lapse video as well as all the individual files that it shot to make the time-lapse through interval timer shooting. Now, how cool is that? Because I've always had a problem with this. I've always had to make a decision in the field, in the heat of the moment, whether I want control over processing these pictures later, which I'm taking for the time lapse, in which case I want to do interval timer shooting with raw files, or I just want a video straight out, which I can share as quickly as possible, in which case I've had to choose inbuilt time lapse shooting. And then you have USB-C. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to see this, not only because it's an absolute rush to see Nikon, a very traditional orthodox company, embracing new technologies and bringing them up to speed with modern standards. Heck, even the iPhone doesn't have USB-C ports yet. Do you realize that? So it's just absolutely amazing to see this USB port right here. And the best part is that it's not just for transferring your data, it's also for charging the camera. Now, how cool is that? That means that I can use the charging brick of my MacBook Pro to charge my DSLR. When was the last time you even dreamt of that? So that's just absolutely terrific. A huge step ahead for DSLRs. And then you have something which may seem like a gimmick, but I think it can be a lot of fun playing with it, which is post-shooting in-camera multiple exposure. So what we had so far with Nikon cameras was just in-camera multiple exposure, where the multiple pictures that you took would be stitched or merged by the camera automatically without really giving you the option of choosing which pictures you wanted to merge with which. Whatever pictures you took in a series or what would be merged, but now you can actually choose within your camera's playback which picture you want merged with which I think, although sounds gimmicky, is a very nice feature to have. You certainly can have a lot of fun with it, particularly if you want to make surrealistic photos. Well, as for the technical performance, I never really worry too much about it because Nikon has been doing this for a very long time. So unless they've got something which is fundamentally wrong, some teething issues such as what happened with the D600 quite infamously, the oil leak issue due to the mirror, so long as they avoid those things, you can pretty much rest assured that the image quality, the noise performance, the sharpness, the color accuracy and the richness, and even the autofocus accuracy and so on will pretty much be at par. And to be fair, I haven't had this camera for long enough to really test those things out, but from the preliminary experiments that I have conducted, particularly in comparison with my current camera, which is the D600, which admittedly is pretty old but is a very, very competent camera in terms of image quality particularly, and of course value for money back then, signs are all very, very positive. Of course the D780 is not perfect, and there are a couple of things which I find really quite irksome. The first is something that is almost inexcusable, which is when you press the white balance or quality buttons to change those settings, they don't show up on the top LCD. I simply cannot comprehend why on earth Nikon would actually do this. And secondly, I almost cannot believe that they did not improve the spread of autofocus points in the viewfinder. I mean, that they didn't have an autofocus sensor with a wider coverage with points going farther towards the edges of the frame. If they could achieve with the D500, admittedly, of course, it's a DX camera and therefore you need a smaller sensor and it's easier to cover the frame. But well, the D500 came out, what, 4 years ago? Yeah, I think 4 years ago. they've had enough time to work on a full frame sensor, and this was a golden opportunity to do it, but they didn't. So there you go, that's what's great about the D780 and what could have been a little better. But overall, I think it's a spectacular replacement for the D750. I always thought the D750 itself, when it replaced the D700, was a slightly underwhelming upgrade because in many areas it actually got downgraded. So a lot of people were confused whether the D750 was actually the replacement of the D700. For instance, it felt less robust, less well built. It pretty much had practically the same continuous burst speed. It didn't really feel all that fast in terms of autofocus. So overall, it was a sort of a half-boiled attempt at replacing the D700. That is assuming that that was supposed to be the D700 replacement, which it seems to be from the name. But I'm really very happy to say that the D780 is the true spiritual successor to the D700 and not the D750, because it really is an evolution, and a very, very strong evolution of a DSLR, and how you can take the good qualities of a camera and without necessarily dropping any of them, which Nikon tends to do very, very frequently, perhaps just to compel people to buy some other model, you can actually add new stuff and make a camera really, really great without making it too heavy and too big and too expensive. Of course, this can be a little controversial because the D780 is not cheap, it's not inexpensive, but I'm really, really happy that it's not ridiculously overpriced. To borrow a phrase from Apple, in the way they describe the iPhone 11, it's got just the right amount of everything, which is why I think the D780 is currently Nikon's best DSLR. Alright, now if you'll excuse me, I have to go out and buy one of these, so I'll see you later.